Good morning and welcome to the Office of the Leader of the Opposition's press conference for Thursday, February 9th, 2023. Allow me to introduce my panel from the right. There is none other than the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Aubrey C. Norton, Member of Parliament, and to his right, Mr. Elson Lowe, Economist. Today's press statement will be read in two parts, and the first part will be read by the Leader of the Opposition.
The 2023 capital budget must be spent with strict financial oversight and follow the procurement law. The government has produced a budget without measures to address poverty, the high cost of living, high inflation, and high level of unemployment. The focus of the budget is on infrastructural development, which is needed, but is done in a way to facilitate widespread corruption. In the light of the foregoing, there's need for A, strict financial oversight to minimize fraud and waste, and B, a public procurement system that ensures equity and rewards a wider range of citizens in our society. For 2023, the government has allocated Guyana $388 billion for capital expenditure. Most of this money will be spent on infrastructure projects such as roads and public buildings. Guyanese should be aware that almost all of the Guyana $388 billion will be filtered through the public procurement system. In other words, through contracts to be awarded by government, ministries, state agencies, and regional democratic councils. Against this backdrop, there is need for the government to put in place measures to A, to minimize corruption and financial mismanagement, and B, to ensure equitable allocation of contracts across groups in the society. A, measures to minimize corruption and financial mismanagement. The coalition delivered quality infrastructure at a much lower cost than the present PPP regime. The revelation by Member of Parliament David Patterson during his budget presentation indicated that the PPP road contracts are costing taxpayers $40 million per kilometer more than under the coalition government. This highlights the crisis of corruption and financial mismanagement in the public procurement system at present. This should not be left unchecked, since the crisis will worsen. The Guyanese people will get fewer and fewer returns relative to the money invested in capital projects. In public spending, citizens must always demand cost minimization, efficiency or output maximization, and effectiveness or full attainment of the intended results. This does not occur under the PPP. The government has thus far failed to inform the nation of any intention to stem the hemorrhaging of public funds through fraud and financial mismanagement. From all indications, it seems more comfortable being a facilitator and a co-conspirator in the abuse of the people's money as the government pursues its policy of enriching its elites, families, friends, and favorites. The people of Guyana must therefore raise their voices in outrage. There must be greater oversight and accountability. The Public Procurement Commission must get off its rump and fulfill its mandate. The Guyana Constitution, Article 212AA, empowers the Commission to, I quote, monitor the performance of procurement bodies with respect to adherence to regulations and efficiency in procuring goods and services and execution of works, unquote. And, I quote, to investigate cases of irregularity and mismanagement and propose remedial action, unquote. As an independent constitutional body, the Commission must now not allow the government to thwart the fulfillment of its responsibility to the people. It must urgently get its act together. In addition, the Office of the Auditor General must conduct value for money audits for large projects, not only after construction, but also during construction. There are now too many infrastructure projects which are too expensive, behind schedule, poorly constructed, and in the hands of contractors with little or no experience. A classic case of this is the Bamia Amelia's Ward Primary School contract, awarded to persons from the entertainment industry with no experience in construction. Their only claim to fame is their close links to the corrupt PPP regime. The APNU-AFC during the budget debate 2023 advocated for a people-centered development strategy in which the resources of our country should benefit the people. Unfortunately, this is not the case with this government, since no action is being taken to ensure the entire $388 billion capital budget for 2023 benefits the people of Guyana. B. Measures to ensure equitable allocation of contracts. The stark imbalance in the award of government contracts must now be addressed to ensure a wider cross-section of Guyanese individuals and businesses can benefit as contractors. There is no denying the obvious fact that only a narrow section of the population benefits overwhelmingly from contract awards. This unacceptable situation has been allowed to continue unrestricted for too long and has become self-perpetuating. These acts of political and ethnic discrimination in the awarding of contracts are unacceptable. Let it be recalled that the award of government contracts was an issue dealt with in the constitutional reform process that emanated from the Herdmanston Accord, meaning that in the aftermath of the 1997 election and public protests, the award of contracts with the attendant discrimination and exclusion was explicitly identified by all stakeholders as a matter of central importance for race relations, social justice, and equal opportunity in Guyana. The 1999 Constitutional Reform Commission agreed, therefore, to establish the Public Procurement Commission as a body with constitutional powers to address this national problem. While in government, the APNU plus AFC established the commission and allowed it to carry out its constitutional mandate. Unfortunately, over the decades, through various machinations by the PPP, the commission has been prevented from delivering on its mandate. This is the case at present. The Public Procurement Commission must work towards building a contract award system that, while remaining fair and competitive, can at the same time, by opening the door for wider participation from underrepresented groups. In this way, the distribution of the country's economic wealth can promote social and economic justice and inclusion across ethnic, religious, gender, political, and social lines. Government must release conference on the 12th January 2023. We alerted the nation that under the table manner in which the government is embarking on the gas to energy project, if not exposed and resisted, opens the door to hundreds of billions of dollars being continuously spent on infrastructure projects unlawfully and unconstitutionally. Further, we warn that the project rests in the hands of Vice President Barry Jack Deo, who is the subject of credible allegations of bribery and corruption and influence peddling, and who has a string of failed projects on his resume that have cost Guyanese billions of dollars. We intend, therefore, to remain relentless in our demand for the government to release all contracts and agreements on the gas to energy project. Already, through our members of Parliament, Mrs. Valda Lawrence, Ganesh Maipal, we have submitted questions and a motion to the National Assembly. We have since submitted a second motion calling on the National Assembly to conclude that this is going to be another failed project and the waste of billions of taxpayer dollars by the Vice President and the PPP regime. In addition, this project is now severely jeopardized by the secrecy surrounding it, the lack of consultation, and by the egotism and incompetence of Barajak Deo. This is the jeopardy we must all try to avert.
Thank you. The next part of the statement will be read by Mr. Elson Lowe.
Good morning. Towards building a path to prosperity for youths in Guyana. Now that the national budget debates have come to a close, we want to draw your attention to an important area of focus that cannot be emphasized enough. This concerns what young Guyanese should expect from their country when the coalition is in office. Behind. This will not be the case under our next government. We will create an environment that helps young people live their best lives. Guyana will be one of the best places in the world to live, develop, and grow. Guyanese young people can look forward to: number one, guaranteed, comfortable housing for young people at the beginning of their careers and other Guyanese through our rent-to-own schemes. Two, salary top-ups to help young people at the beginning of those careers to live comfortable lives. Three, a tuition-free University of Guyana to encourage young people to attain higher education. Four, the writing off of all University of Guyana student debt. 5. Student stipends of no less than $50,000 for 50,000 tertiary students to help them meet the expenses of higher education and prepare themselves for the job market. Tens of thousands of training opportunities through internships with oil companies and various TVET programs to help young people fill jobs in the 7. The implementation of night schools for those who would have dropped out of school and those who want to improve their education and obtain better jobs. 8. High-paying jobs across Guyana with a new focus throughout the economy on productivity. 9. Guaranteed high-paying jobs for all university graduates where they will help solve Guyana's development problems through analysis and data-driven research. 10. The removal of income tax to help young people at the beginning of their career to establish themselves. 11. Free water and electricity service for young people beginning their careers. 12. Livable communities throughout Guyana with public sport not merely to ensure participation in international competitions, but with a focus on making Guyana proud on the podiums of the different sports. 14. Programs to promote art and culture that contribute to the development of a well-rounded youth. With Guyana's extensive oil wealth should come optimism and enthusiasm. Unfortunately, most, if not all, of the international reports on Guyana suggest that poverty is on the increase. We intend always to help young people to succeed and will ensure that they feel great pride in our country. We recognize that the government has done little to help young people feel this optimism and accomplish their career, social, and personal goals. We will do everything in our power to change this now and when we return to office. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, as is customary, we will take questions based on the press statement. I am seeing that Mr. Adam Harris is speaking, but I can't hear anything. Mr. Harris? I'm still not hearing you.
I know.
Okay, I'm hearing you now.
Sorry?
I'm hearing you now.
Oh boy. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right. This has to do with the presentation by the government leader. Now, there was one criticism I saw where it said that the budget had actions
Well, first of all, the world would not have known that it had nothing for our constituents if we stayed away from the debate. Secondly, it was important for us to outline our position and to, are you hearing?
He's sticking.
Are you hearing, Adam?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you. Yes, I was saying in addition, we needed to outline the programs, etc., that we will propose for our constituents and for the people in which the resources allocated are allocated in a way that it will benefit people. Had we not participated, it would not have been in the Hansard and around that there was nothing in there for the youth. There was nothing in there for those in poverty. There were no measures to deal with the cost of living. So we believe of necessity, we needed to put on the records what the reality was. Mind you, Adam, if you participate, there'll be criticisms. If you don't participate, there will also be criticism. One has to assess it and make a decision. And our decision was that we needed to participate.
Thank you. Yes, you can go ahead.
My question has to do with the cost of construction of roads. Now, the government leader said that Mr. Patterson explained that the cost of infrastructure, for example, the cost of road, that one, we took inflation into account, and two, that there is an obvious attempt to inflate figures at this stage. You got the question?
No, I didn't get a question. I just said inflate figures at this stage and then nothing else after. So what was the question?
Oh, okay. Yes. I'm saying that Mr. Patton.
I heard that. What I didn't hear is the question to the end.
Oh, the question is, did we take inflation into account? Or are we saying that there was a deliberate attempt to inflate figures to facilitate what you say is corruption?
A case of corruption rather than any inflation.
One of the other things that we'd like to point the viewers toward is that really a road is supposed to last you What we've been seeing over the past couple of years is that almost immediately after roads are constructed, there are serious defects with them. We'll recall that there was the road at University of Guyana, the UG Road there, which after 2 days there was the repairs were needed. Then you see the road in Thomas Lands, where after only a few weeks repairs were needed. These raise serious questions, and these are the type of things that need to be investigated and that a public procurement commission would want to look at to find out what the truth is here. Because we cannot be seeing a situation where repairs and substantial works are supposed to last for 20 years, or even if you give it 10 years, and in 2 weeks, there's a problem. That, to my mind, raises very serious alarms.
And if you look at a road like the Suzdijk-Linden Highway, which was built in 1968, and many other roads built previous to the PPP government, you will see that many of them lasted many years. And this thing now of a road not lasting 5 years is a clear indication of, one, the substandard work, and two, the fact that there is corruption, and then the same people will get the same road again to do.
Thank you. Any other questions on the press statement? Of course, by the raise of hands. All right, I see no hands on that. Any other questions outside of the press statement?
The first one that I'd like to ask, there was a recent quote-unquote poll by Bisram. Now, this poll is supposed to analyze the strength and ability of the government leader and identify who they feel are better people. No, forget my reaction to Bisram's poll. But what is your reaction to Bisram's finding?
First of all, Bisram has no credibility. For years, Bisram has been a mouthpiece of the PPP, and whenever their backs are against the wall, he comes out with some poll that suggests that they're still viable. If you go back to the 2011 elections, running up to it, he had predicted that the PPP will win handsomely. It turned out that they didn't. The combined opposition got a majority. If you go to the 2015 election, Bisram was predicting victory for the PPP, and no such thing occurred. Vishnu Bisram is a PPP apologist who cannot be considered an objective pollster. He has to be considered a political hack that carries out the biddings of the People's Progressive Party, and therefore it is known that the People's Progressive Party very uncomfortable with my leadership, and therefore I anticipated that they would have done something like that, and Bisram is the best compromise vehicle to do it for them. When it comes to our abilities as opposition, I don't think it is in question. In fact, I found that the finance minister had difficulty responding to us in the budget debates, etc. So one recognized that having been on the back foot, the PPP will come with something. And mind you, while Freddie Kissoon might change his mouth now, if you go back to reading Freddie Kissoon, he has a number of articles establishing that when it comes to polling, Vishnu Bisram is a fraud. Doctored by Bisram as serious.
I'd also like to gently remind the public that when the leader won leadership, it wasn't by a small margin. So.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
Press conference. Yes, and asked him.
You can go ahead, Mr. Harris.
I was looking at the budget, and I was looking at a series of things, and I would like your reaction to obvious wastage. We're paying for a $200 million US loan on the Skeldon Sugar Factory that supplies scrap metal. We spent more than $100 million on the Isla Falls project, and we now have a road leading to nowhere, some Port Knockers use it and all of that. All told, in excess of $300 million US dollars went to the dust. What is there that the opposition can do to make someone accountable for that obvious waste of money?
Well, you would see that, first of all, we have tabled motions to ensure that the documents come to the Parliament. We have tabled motions to ensure that the Economic and Social Services Committee, which has responsibility for dealing with those things, get the documents, interrogate it so that we can bring to the fore the wastage that is occurring. This is a matter that has to be exposed in the public domain. And then I think we can also take the measure, once it's exposed, to write the international resources and deal with it in that fashion.
But do you have any guarantee that these motions will see the light of day, given the posture of the Speaker to all the previous motions?
These motions were written in simple fashion, leaving no scope for the Speaker to say no to them. We have scrutinized the rules. If the Speaker is going to say no, he will have to be blatant and barefaced, and that will generate its own problems that we will deal with. But these motions are done within the confines of the rules, and we watch to see what the Speaker will do. Of course, we note the Speaker is becoming more and more dictatorial. For those who follow the last debate, and this is an issue we'll have to challenge, words like corruption are now outlawed, and which doesn't make any sense, because you're dealing with a corrupt regime. How else you can describe them?
Adam, you would also note that we've mentioned it in today's press release, we've on more than one occasion written motions to ask some serious questions and get the release of information regarding the gas energy project. Now, the reason that we're so intent on that is, ultimately, we don't want to see another failure as we saw at Skeldon. We're trying to do everything in our power to prevent that, to raise scrutiny, to ensure that all of these agreements are public, because the country cannot afford a $2 billion failure when it could not have afforded a $200 million failure only a few years ago. It's very much ridiculous, and I think it raises the question of the governance the PPP intends to engage in regarding the oil sector. To that end, we also want to call to the public's attention that we've still not seen the release of the audit of the $7 billion contract audit, which is a 400 and something million dollars. That audit is still ongoing, despite the fact that the appropriate documents were handed over to the GRA. The report was handed over to the GRA in excess of about 2 years ago. Now, I think what this really establishes, or I think will help Guyanese to see, is that the PPP does not intend to releasing an oil audit. Now, what it means is that for any oil company that comes to do business in Guyana, they can pressure that company to siphon funds off to one of their shell companies somewhere in the world and remove those funds, buy a cost oil from the national coffers. So essentially, they can. So not releasing an audit means that we don't have visibility as to what is happening with the oil funds. It is an extremely serious issue, and you could see billions and billions of dollars siphoned off. It would create a kleptocracy, and that is why we must see these audits released, and we cannot hear that 2 more years have passed and the audits are still being worked on.
I have a question from Miss Alia. Analia?
Hello, good day.
Could you state your news entity and your name? Thank you.
This is Davina Bhagat with Kaiser News. I'm actually asking a question on behalf of my colleague.
Okay. Go ahead.
All right, so Mr. Norton, we covered a story on Sunday in which we had this highlighted in our PSA with that oil company. I wanted to know what are your thoughts on this? Yeah, you can go ahead with that and then I'll have follow-up.
I don't, though I look at Sunday, Kaicho, I don't recall seeing that article. I'll have to look at it and then get back to you on it. I don't recall. I don't know if Elson.
Yeah, well, once an expense is under the PSA as a recoverable expense, that's what it would be. That would be the existing clause in the PSA. Of course, we can always have conversations as a country as to how things will progress. But if that's what exists in the PSA, that's what you're going to see reflected. However, we again want to highlight to the Guyanese public that on the one hand, we'll be maybe talking about the insurance costs. But do we know what the insurance costs are? We can't know that unless we see some transparency regarding what is being paid. It could be that we're being charged 3 times what we're supposed to be charged. And of course, the audit is supposed to check those types of things. So ultimately, the audit issue is so serious that it could have ramifications right across the PSA.
All right, thank you for that. I have a follow-up, sir. Mr. Norton, you as the opposition leader, are you comfortable with this arrangement, sir? Or do you believe that we should move in the direction of seeking an addendum to fix some of those lopsided clauses, the provisions such as Exxon recovering insurance costs? Do you believe that it should be, this especially should be non-recoverable?
I've said from the inception that Article 16, I think, of the agreement provides for the government of Guyana and Exxon to engage. I've said before, I think the government should engage and make the changes that are necessary to ensure that the people of Guyana get the benefit they deserve from this process. And I stick to that position.
Thank you. I have a follow-up, sir, but actually what I'd like to know is we are approving more projects. The government is approving more projects. Do you think that we should be pushing for at least a higher royalty rates on one project going forward?
I think that, like I've said before, our major objective has to be to ensure the people of Guyana benefit as much as possible. And any measure that needs to be taken to do that, I will support. We have heard the issue of ring fencing, which we know is needed, and therefore that will help in terms of us being able to restrict costs ending up where they shouldn't be. And we believe all of these measures are needed to ensure that we benefit. And I think the conditions are ripe in the world for us to do that. If you look at the United States, if you look at the UK, all of them are seeking to benefit more from the oil companies. What we needed as well to complement it, like I said in the budget speech, is a foreign policy that is structured in such a way that allows us to mobilize support to be able to make the changes we need to benefit from these contracts. So the absence of a clear foreign policy vis-a-vis oil resources in the world is something that we have to address, which has not been addressed. And if you listen to the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Parliament, he didn't say anything about foreign policy. He was at sea. But if you are now operating in a country that has oil, you need foreign policy positions to help you to benefit from that resource, which is what I think needs to be done. So you need both.
In the best interest of ExxonMobil by refusing to renegotiate that deal?
I think the government of Guyana is working in the interest of its elites, friends and favorites. And in that circumstance, the tendency will be for them not to want to hold ExxonMobil accountable. And they...
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
If there's no one else, can I ask another?
Yes, you may.
All right, thank you. Mr. Norton, I think I heard you mention during your presentations earlier that you have an issue with these higher prices.
Sure.
Have an issue with?
Higher
With
prices.
the higher costs for road projects and so on. But sir, what, I know you've highlighted it, but what do you plan to do with it, with this concern that you have? Will you be seeking an investigation, or how do we address this current issue?
Well, we actually said that in the press statement. We have outlined what needed to be done to ensure that they are held accountable, etc. We did say we identify measures to minimize corruption and financial mismanagement, and we identify the measures to ensure equitable allocation of contracts in this process. And we did call in the original thing for strict oversight, strict financial oversight to minimize fund and waste, and a public procurement system that ensures equity and rewards a wide range of citizens in our society. We believe these measures are needed to deal with these kind of costs that are emerging.
One of the things we also want to draw to your attention, there's a particular supermarket that says the more you... So that capital budget has rapidly expanded. I believe it expanded about 50% year over year. And so the losses, if we continue with this in the same way, are going to similarly expand as time goes on. It is not just a problem for now, it's a problem going forward. But it seems to be that the PPP intends to run the country this way. And as a result, as we spend more, we're not going to get anything approaching what we should be getting from these projects.
In addition, if you go through the July 2022 IMF country report on Guyana, you would recognize that the IMF suggested to the government that they need to moderate the spending, but rather than moderate it, they expanded it, which suggests to me that they're not interested in the long-term stability of this country. They're interested in the corruption and the resources that will come from it, because they have valuable advice from the International Monetary Fund on this issue, but they choose to go in another direction.
Thank you. At this time, as we come to the wrap-up time, I'll ask if...
Please,
Yes,
one more,
yes,
please.
That's what I was about to say, that I'll take one more question.
Honorable Leader Mr. Lowe, the President has made a big thing about taking the office of the President into the regions. Now, right-minded people are saying that he is overriding the authority of the various NDCs, because matters that the NDCs would have dealt with would now be dealt with by the President. Your reaction, sir?
First of all, it's a manifestation of the government's incompetence. One of the tasks a government has to undertake is to do everything to develop the efficiency and effectiveness of every ministry, every regional democratic council, every neighborhood democratic council, and even the village councils. Now, what is evident is no action is taken to ensure efficiency, and the government now taking what is some call a populist approach, with the president running all around trying to solve all the problems. I think it will generate more problems, because first of all, if you don't have the institutional capacity to solve the problems, the president can only be able to solve some minimal ones on the way. But the real problems that need to be solved from an institutional standpoint will not be solved. Secondly, it is also suggesting a certain level of incompetence to deal with matters in